Biden delivering a divisive, race-baiting commencement address to an all-male, historically black college in Atlanta. The president painting America as a racist place that does not love black people.
You missed your high school graduation. You started college just as George Floyd was murdered. And there was a reckoning on race. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. Extremists close the doors of opportunity. Strike down affirmative action. Attack the values of diversity, equality, and inclusion. They don't see you in the future of America, but they're wrong.
Biden also using that speech to tell brazen lies about Georgia's election integrity law, like this debunked whopper about water. Listen.
Today in Georgia, they won't allow water to be available to you while you wait in line to vote in an election. What in the hell is that all about?
Let's go to you first, Harold.
For no particular reason.
What did you think about the president's speech? Did you find it inspiring?
So I think we, too often when we are talking about serious issues and we want to opine on them, we sometimes, I think too often, use the prism of race to do it. The backdrop of this is the president's polling numbers with black men is not where he wants them to be. So he wanted to use this effort and platform to be able to do some of that. I listened to a lot of the speech, and he talked a lot about his personal life and talked a lot about his faith. I think you have to step back and treat voters like everyday voters. I oftentimes say you meet people where they are, and every voter is paying too much at the grocery store. Every voter is paying too much at the gas station. Every American is paying too much for housing, or they believe that they are, and most times are. I think that's where you have to talk about this. The idea of trying to make everything about race or trying to isolate race. There's no doubt there are issues that deal with race. The fact that more black kids aren't being educated in school, the fact that more black communities have a saturation of firearms, the fact that more black moms they're born, when their kids are born, the likelihood of them having a health element is greater than it is in other communities. All those things are things we can look to and look to data. But when you're a politician, you're out talking about the things you want to do to make the nation safer. The two biggest issues, the economy, inflation, and border. Those are the issues that every voter, regardless of one's race, that they care deeply about. I think the president gave it a great try in Morehouse, but I would have probably done a little differently.
Okay. Dana, when he says we don't have a democracy if black men are dying in the streets, what is he saying there?
This was a speech that was a long way from hope and change. Like, I don't understand it. And if I were ever to be in a White House again, which I will never be, but let me just say, if I were ever to be there again, if the President of the United States is offered an opportunity to give a commencement speech, and it is an accepted offer, I would say, in no way can you make this about politics. Commencement speeches are not about you or your campaign. They are about the students and the families who just made a lot of sacrifices and worked very hard to get to this moment. And what did he tell them? Your futures are dire. They are dismal. Why'd you even bother? I don't even know why you're here. Why are we here doing this? In fact, everybody, why don't we just all go home? I was miserable about it because I love a good commencement speech. We did ours. Last week, we gave our 1-minute speeches, and they were much more inspiring than this. But I also ask this about every speech. Why are you giving it? Like, why did you give it this way? It's because his base is crumbling in front of his eyes. And so he has to figure out a way to scare them into voting for them. I mean, the numbers are abysmal for him. In Pennsylvania over the weekend, Selena Zito wrote a piece, like she wrote or she tweeted a piece about black voters in Pennsylvania starting to walk away from the Biden campaign. Pennsylvania is a must-win state. And I'm not saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll vote for RFK Jr. if he's on the ballot. But if Biden loses just a fraction of those voters, his coalition falls apart, perhaps for a generation.
Gutfeld.
You know, if he wants to get rid of the poison of white supremacy, he could just resign and let the black lady take over. I wonder how the crowd would have taken that. There were so many things that he said that were just so wrong. When he's talking about black men are getting killed, who's killing them? You know, it's like everything he said was like, well, that's either wrong or what are you not saying? I defended the Kansas City Chiefs speech last week because it wasn't for the couch-bound critics. It was done by a Catholic in a Catholic venue to a Catholic audience. He's playing to an audience, but where Butker expressed beliefs, he's parroting lies that are actually based on the assumption that everyone there is a victim. It's actually more insulting than anything you could imagine to go there. It wasn't a commencement address. It was a eulogy for the black race. He was like, you're hopeless. You're screwed. He told 13% of America, your country hates you. I mean, talk about putting y'all back in chains, as Biden said about Romney. This is the most divisive leader I think I've ever seen. He's about as uplifting as a terminal illness, and he's only doing it to hold on to power. We've talked about this before. Pitting race against race keeps us busy. So they remain immune to our concerns, right? That's all this is if they could just keep black people like looking at the whites and going, oh, these guys suck, then they're okay. Then when he clapped after the immediate ceasefire line, that tells you everything you need to know about Biden. He will do or say whatever is necessary to play the crowd. He has a spine of a soggy Nerf ball.
But in fairness, President Trump speaks to his crowds when he's before rally, and he says things that I think are out of line and out of bounds.
But they're optimistic. These are pessimistic.
Well, President Trump has been known to hurl a few insults and hurl a few things at
specific people, not in groups.
Right.
I got it, but I'm just saying,
this is a different context. It's a commencement address, and as Dana said, you're trying to be a little more uplifting about the future, Judge Janine.
The sad part about this is he is so disconnected, Joe Biden, that he doesn't allow these students to have their moment. He doesn't allow them and their parents to have that celebratory moment, and he is incapable of letting them reflect on what they are able to do in the future. Instead, he wants them all to look backwards and makes it seem like the backwards is today and tomorrow. I mean, he's the racist here. He is the one who is creating the division here. He is the guy who's basically saying blacks are being killed in the streets, you know, and you have to work 10 times harder than the next guy to do as well. Well, I guess he hasn't seen what DEI does. I guess he hasn't seen what he himself and his party is doing to blacks in this country. Blacks are, without a doubt, the victims of other blacks in terms of crime in this country. Blacks in the minority community are the victims of illegals in the sense that illegals are taking priority of where they are in terms of programs, school programs, parks, where the illegals come in and literally take away the hopes of black children who have the ability to succeed, and he's preventing them from doing that. And he wants to talk about democracy. What is democracy today for you? I'll tell you what democracy is, Joe. Democracy is allowing Jewish students to walk on campus and not be afraid to enter into a library, not be prevented from entering into schools. But look, this is the same Joe Biden, who as a senator voted against integration in schools. This is the same Joe Biden who gave a eulogy for a Klan member, okay? This is a guy who was the racist. And in the end, what he did was he took a moment to create a wonderful period and a wonderful celebration for students and their parents and turned it into hate and divisiveness. But that's who that man is.
Okay. Great discussion, all of you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.